Hi, thanks so much for stopping by. I'm making fermented carrot sticks. This is the #1 recipe that you need to make if you are new to fermenting vegetables. There's a couple reasons why it's so delicious and it's so easy. Sometimes when people are first getting started with enjoying fermented foods, they're kind of not used to that strong, tart, fermented flavor. And fermented carrots can be the best fermented vegetable to start with because they're really easy to like. They're mild and tasty. They kind of remind you of like a mild, extra crunchy dill pickle, but they still have all those great benefits that probiotic foods are known for. So to make this, you just need a few different things. You need a quart mason jar, some carrots, some fresh garlic cloves, some fresh dill, and some salt. So you don't want to peel your carrots when you're making these. And the reason for that is the skins of the carrots actually have a lot of great microbes on them that really help the ferment get started. You do want to make sure that everything is very clean when you're fermenting. So knife, cutting board, ingredients are all washed and clean. But to start, I'm really just going to start by trimming the very ends off of these carrots. The amount of carrots is just going to depend on how big your carrots are, big or small, what size they are. But I'm going to cut each carrot into 4/4 long ways just to make like a nice classic carrot stick. And then since this was a longer one, I'm just going to cut that in half, and I'm going to get a few of them because I don't want them to kind of fall over once I start putting them in the jar. But let's get a nice bunch of carrot sticks, and then we'll see what that looks like in the jar, and then we can see if we would like to add more or if that's enough. But you can pack these in there pretty firmly as long as everything is short enough that it stays submerged. I'm going to talk about how to use the correct amount of salt so that your brine works well, and how to know when your ferment is done so that you can have a really successful fermented carrots. So I think I'm going to start with that. Start loading these in here. It really is so easy. It just takes a few minutes to cut up some carrots, add a few other ingredients, a little time to let it ferment, but you know, that's hands-off time. So let's see, I want to make sure they're all standing up so they fit in there. Yep, we've got some room for a little bit more, so I'm going to cut up 1 or 2 more carrots. I'm going to start with 1. And then we'll see what that looks like in there. Yeah, that's looking great. I think I can fit 1 more though. So you can pack them in there pretty tightly. The main thing again is that they are short enough so that they're not too tall. And yeah, we're going to get this in there. So what was that? 6 carrots. They were like medium-ish carrots, but we're going to get 6 carrots to fit in here. Just stick those down in there wherever they will go. Just like that. See how pretty that is already? Our next step is adding the other ingredients that add great flavor. So for garlic cloves, you just want whole fresh garlic cloves, and then depending on how strong you want the garlic flavor, you can do 3 to 6 garlic cloves. It also depends on the size too. I'm going to go ahead and do 6 just because I really like that nice garlic flavor in here. And then I like to eat the fermented garlic cloves also. So when garlic ferments, it loses a lot of that really sharp spicy flavor, and it's just delicious. So let's quick hit all these under the knife just to get them started, and then I'll peel those and add them to the jar. There we go. Kind of distribute them around in there a bit evenly. Next is a great time to add our mineral salt. So you can technically use any salt when you're making fermented vegetables. I prefer to use a natural salt, like a sea salt or a natural rock salt, so that it has naturally occurring minerals in it rather than something like a refined table salt where those minerals have been removed. Today I'm using pink Himalayan salt. I also like Baja Gold sea salt or Celtic sea salt. I really like those. I also will sometimes use pink Himalayan salt, so I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle that salt in. I'm adding 1 tablespoon, oops, wrong lid. I'm adding 1 tablespoon of my mineral salt. And then I'm going to choose a bunch of dill. So just, you know, an appropriate sized amount of dill for this jar. Not too much to where it's going to be hard to keep it submerged, but just enough to where I know it's enough to be adding a lot of flavor. Okay, after our carrots, garlic, dill, and salt are in there, we are ready to add our water. So this can be filtered water or spring water. And we're just going to fill the jar up just to where that dill is fully submerged. So you can use a flat plastic lid, but my favorite is actually the metal flat and ring, and I'll show you why. As long as your brine is not too full, you want everything submerged, but you want the top of the brine just at the shoulder of the jar, just where it curves. Everything in there, and then the liquid comes up just as the shoulder starts to curve there. Then you can put on this style of a lid, screw it down tightly, and then see how it will pop up and down. So what that's going to do is, as the fermentation happens and all those friendly little microbes start going in there and multiplying and doing their work, then that's going to build up enough pressure to where you won't be able to tap this up and down anymore. So as soon as you can't pop this up and down anymore, then you know it's ready to move to the refrigerator. So this handy little tip applies to any fermented vegetable that you want to start making. My favorites for people who are just starting making their own fermented vegetables are, like I said, these fermented carrot sticks, because they're so easy and so delicious. Anybody likes them, whether you're used to fermented foods or not. And then next would be sauerkraut. That's an amazing one because it has incredible benefits and it's also very easy to make. And then another very beginner-friendly one is pickles, which I have on my website already. There's a printable recipe card there. I do have an older video that I've done on those, and I'm going to be doing another video soon. So yeah, carrots, sauerkraut, and pickles, definitely my top favorite ones for people who are just getting started fermenting. But that's how easy it is to put it together. This is how to know when it's done. If you can pop it up and down, it still needs to stay on the counter. When there's enough pressure where you can't pop that up and down anymore, you move it to the fridge. You let it cool down in the fridge for a while so that all those bacteria will slow down with the nice cool temperatures in the refrigerator. Doesn't that sound nice right now in the heat of summer, just slowing down with cool temperatures? Yes. So that's what will happen. When you move it to the refrigerator, the little microbes will slow down, and then you'll be able to open it safely without fear of it bubbling over. I don't recommend opening your ferment while it's on the counter and checking on it. I don't recommend that, because you want that pressure to build so that you know when that little pop isn't able to happen anymore, and then you can move it to the refrigerator. Leave it in there for a few hours so it can calm down and cool down, and then you can open it and taste them. Sometimes you'll taste carrots and you're like, They just taste kind of like salty carrots. I'd like them to have a stronger fermented flavor. If that's the case, then you can totally put the lid back on and leave it on the counter for a few more days. Let's also talk about fermentation time. So the warmer the room temperature, the more active those little microbes are going to be and the faster the fermentation happens. The cooler your room temperature, the slower the fermentation is going to take. So this can take anywhere from like 3 to 7 days to be ready, just depending on your room temperature. And then, like I said, if you put it in the fridge after you can't pop it anymore, let it cool down, taste it, and you're like, I want a stronger fermented flavor, then that's fine. Pop the lid back on nice and tight, leave it on the counter for another number of days, put it back in the fridge, and then try it again. So that is how to get started fermenting vegetables. I have this recipe written out with a printable recipe card on my website. I'll have that linked down below in case you'd like to grab that. I've also made some ebooks for you, and I have those down in the description box. I also made a free from scratch cooking workshop that you might be interested in, and I'll have the link to that in the description as well. I hope that you enjoyed watching that, and let me know in the comments, do you already love fermented vegetables? Are you already making them, or are you new to it? What are your favorite ones if you're already making them? What questions do you have about fermentation? Leave me a comment and let me know. And then make sure to like this video if you did like it, and hit subscribe if you want more videos about from scratch cooking and food preservation tips, the old-fashioned traditional way. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.